and welcome to SCN Summit, Future of the Supply Chain, hosted by Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive. I am Marina Mayer, Editor-in-Chief, and this session will detail the rise of electrification and the critical steps for successful and safe clean technology TRU trailer deployments. Moderating today's session is Don Durham, Vice President of Customer Solutions for PLM Fleet. Don is a 25-year veteran of PLM Fleet, an industry expert on cold chain transport application and regulatory compliance, and a frequent guest speaker on podcasts and cold chain industry events. And with that, Don, it's great to see you again. Welcome to the program. I'm going to hand things over to you.
Great. Thank you, Marina. Much appreciated. So welcome, everybody, to the rise of the EV machines. I've got a great panel to discuss this particular topic. We'll have Robert Koelsch, along with his brother, have been engineering and commercializing breakthrough microchip-based innovations for decades. AEM is a SolarTechTRU that has been tested for over 11 years, and it's the only TRU that has millions of miles of performance data proving its power and its impressive ability to perform reliability for cold chain transport. We also have Alan Gassler, is the zero emissions customers sales and operation analyst over at PLM Fleet. As a subject matter expert on all technologies used to monitor, report, and define zero emission performance. Alan also provides direct customer consulting on matrix and how to best optimize and evaluate successful zero emission equipment with existing customers in fleet operations. So we're going to take a little bit of time right here in the beginning and really look at two technologies. We've got Robert with AEM, who has a groundbreaking technology. And then we also have Carrier, well-known in the industry throughout the years and providing diesel transportation. And so I wanted to take this time to introduce Robert to you first and have Robert kind of go over, take a few minutes to talk about the technology that he's bringing to market.
Thank you, Don. We started in 2009 looking at this product sector, and we knew that it was going to be about power. Refrigeration was well understood, but how to power the refrigeration with electric means 100% was the challenge everybody was looking back 14 years ago at. So we got heavily involved in it and started to run our first solar-powered units in 2009. We did that with 4,000-pound lead-acid batteries, forklift batteries, really. And we decided early on that because solar panels were going to be mainstay in our product offering, that we wanted to go low voltage DC. That's what solar panels are, is low voltage DC, as well as lithium batteries, and batteries in general are all DC. So we developed a system 2009, spent up into the 2016 timeframe retrofitting existing diesel units. And so we really studied the power heavily. So we looked at the power requirements because we knew it was going to be about range, just like your car is all about range on your EV vehicle. That's what everybody's concerned about. So our strategy was to maximize that, to reduce the power requirements to run 100% electric, because that's the challenge. So since 2012, that's when the first lithium batteries were rolled out. We've been delivering food every day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day with lithium batteries. Up to this point now, we're over 8 million miles on the road, which is very important. You're going to find that when you move into EV vehicles, especially in trailers, there's a tremendous amount of vibration involved. And so that time on the road is very important to shake out your battery management systems, which are quite sensitive systems, really semi-conductor-based systems with a lot of small wiring involved in them. And so all the controls for the refrigeration unit are pretty well understood. Thermo King and Carrier have been using that for a lot of decades. But when it gets down into the battery side of it, that's where we really had to do a lot of studying. So that mileage on the road is very important. Also for our wheel generator, what we call a momentum generator, those miles are important to really shake that product out. And then from the operational standpoint of making the symphony work between all the solar and the batteries and the wheel generator and the charging for the refrigeration unit to run, we've got well over 1.5 million hours now, and that's well over 1.5 million plugs, as safe plugs as well at low voltage. So we feel like we've cracked the code on range anxiety. If you could go to the next slide. When you look at the reality of operating these things, our baseline, everybody asks, how long does your battery last? And of course, there's a lot of assumptions that have to come into that to arrive at an answer to that question. So our assumptions are it's 88 degrees outside, relatively low humidity, and we can get 32 hours without plugging in with no door openings. As soon as you start opening doors, those numbers all change radically, and they're very hard to predict depending on how long you leave your doors open. That's based on running a multi-temp with 8 pallets at 0 degrees in the front and 8 pallets of 35 degrees in the back. And then, of course, the back would be bulkheaded if you were doing a third dry zone in behind. So these are kind of important numbers. At over 52,000 hours, we arrived at that multi-temp that everybody's gone from 0 to -10 these days. So you start adding door openings for 12 stops. We really average about 16 hours on battery life, which is always enough to get us back from the route back to the center and then get them plugged in. We've been running tens of thousands of hours at -20. Of course, a lot of people give you the toughest application right out of the chute. So -20 is based on 24 pallets and 4 hours of door openings, gives us an 11-hour battery life out on the road. And then 35 degrees, that shouldn't be a minus, it should be 35 degrees single zone. We can go 55 hours and in a lot of cases almost without plugins and just run off solar for 35-degree loads. Next slide, please. So the reality of operating zero emission, this is what it looks like. This is data from last year, just before Easter 2023. And it's interesting because you look at the outbound average, and of course, this depends on how well the facility is doing in plugging the unit in as it's being pre-cooled, as it's being loaded at the docks, and then staged before it goes out on the road. And you can see over that 8-week period, we're doing real well until a crew came in that wasn't trained. And that crew came in just before Easter because everybody was trying to increase their workforce to get the product out the door. Well, as you can see, some dangerous situations where it goes out on a low state of charge situation. The good news is when you look at the second line on the battery inbound, we're able to still bring it back at 48 and 68%, even though it went out at low voltage. And that's largely attributable to the solar panels and the momentum generator. Resulted in zero cooling issues over that period, which were several thousand stops. And the average temperature, as you can see back then, was 75 and 77. So that's the real world operation of zero emission on a real fleet doing it every day. So we feel like the technology is there and adaptable to integrate into your facility. So it really gets down to, okay, how do you integrate into your facility? If you could go to the next slide there. Integrating into the facility really requires infrastructure at your facility, but we also have an option on our momentum generator to where you're outside your facility and you're operating outside of the state of California, for instance, because some of our fleets do that. And this is a slide showing you that we went from Phoenix to Orlando, Florida, just before COVID hit to the IFTA show in 2019 without a plug-in. So no infrastructure required. The unit was able to run on its momentum generator and solar and keep 2 cavities at 0 degrees and 40 degrees through that whole route. So that's going 93 hours and 2,400 miles with no plug-ins. So when everybody talks about the plug-in being a big hold-up to going EV, not necessarily. Now you move into California, if you go to the next slide, please. I should mention we maintained a 75%, nothing lower than a 75% battery state of charge on that whole trip. And that was with one driver taking breaks at night. And by the way, he went through 5 tornadoes and didn't lose a solar panel. Next slide, please. So when you get into infrastructure, these are some of our trailers that we've got sitting at a facility where we have automated charging. And so we've got patents issued now to where we don't need cords any longer. We can actually land these trailers automatically and charge them. So we are heavily involved in the infrastructure. Of course, one of the big things moving to EVs, anybody's EVs, is you've got to have chargers in place ahead of time. So we work with the customer closely to get that infrastructure in place so that you can operate your EVs alongside your diesels as you integrate in. That's it, Don. Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Robert.
So this one is for Robert. Equipment lead times continue to be extended in commercial transportation. What is the lead times to acquire an AEM unit? Do I have an option of putting a new AEM unit on an existing trailer?
Yeah, it depends on how fast you want to deploy, but right now our lead times run between 6 and 9 months. And that's not bad because you really need at least 6 months to really get ready with your site audit and get the infrastructure and charging structure in place. And again, that has to do with how many you're going to bring in, whether you're going to bring in 5 or 50.
Well, thank you, Don, again for moderating today's session, and thank you to our wonderful panelists for being a part of it and sharing your knowledge and industry insight, and to our wonderful audience, as always. An archived version of today's presentation will be posted at scnsummit.com, where you can access the link that you used to log in today, your registration link, and you can access the on-demand version at that point in time. While at scnsummit.com, don't forget to register. There's still time to register for our previous sessions. There's also on demand of state of volume rebates and warehouse automation. Just go to scnsummit.com to register. Again, my name is Marina Mayer, Editor-in-Chief of Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive, and I hope to see you again at our next SCN Summit event.